Hey guys, Rift here, and today let's talk about that Bioware game that no one talks about. That game is Jade Empire. This game was in between two of the most iconic games that Bioware created, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic and Mass Effect. This game was released in 2005 exclusively for the Xbox and was later released to the PC, and eventually released the Jade Empire Special Edition. I honestly enjoyed a lot of things about this game. Though this game does show its age, it's still pretty good. Overall, this game is fairly short, clocking in about 27 hours in my first playthrough, and like any Bioware game, this game has companions, a karma system, and a lot of dialogue and exposition, and I mean a lot of dialogue. First, let's talk about the general overview and setting of the game. This game is an action RPG. Not like the previous Bioware game Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, where the combat was a hybrid of turn-based combat and real-time combat. This game is more hands-on when it comes to its combat, which we'll talk more about later. This game takes place in the Jade Empire and a few of its provinces. The world of Jade Empire was inspired by a mystical ancient China. The world is filled with martial arts, culture, magic, gods, and demons, and a lot of mystical lore. The story overall reminds me of that Nickelodeon show, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Basically, you're the last spirit monk, and the Jade Empire has been plagued with wandering spirits because they can't find peace. And as you progress through the story, you learn that the Emperor is behind a lot of the horrible things happening in the world of the game. Your character, the Spirit Monk, was part of a group of people that acted like guides to lost spirits. With the help of the Water Dragon, they kept the peace between the world of the living and the afterlife. But the Emperor, who was desperate to keep his empire alive from a terrible drought, seeked out the power of the Water Dragon, and ended up killing the Water Dragon and weakening its spirit. The Emperor also wiped out all of the Spirit Monks. Your character starts their journey when their home gets destroyed and their master kidnapped by the Lotus Assassins. So, the story overall is fairly simple. You are the last of your kind, and only you can bring the balance and save the world. It's basically every game story ever, but it's not a bad thing in my eyes. They did really well overall with the game's story and world. I do have a few issues with the NPCs during Chapter 3. The story basically establishes that the Lotus Assassins work in the shadows, and they are to be feared, and people are scared to talk about them. But you also find random NPCs just casually talking about them when you're interacting with them. This isn't the only example of this, but it's the most prominent. Another issue I had is with the Water Dragon. For some reason, she only speaks in riddles, and you find out towards the end that she's aware of the whole truth, but decides, nah, I'm not gonna tell you because twist in the end. Which was kinda like, okay, but why didn't you tell me about that earlier? This would have been a lot easier. And another point was Master Li's plan. I won't spoil it here, but the plan was very questionable to say the least. Basically, Master Li wants you to defeat the Emperor, which doesn't really make sense, because it isn't really established how only you can beat the Emperor. Maybe it's because the Emperor stole the powers of the Water Dragon and you are the last Spirit Monk after the Emperor and his brother killed them all, and you're the only one immune to the powers of the Emperor. But again, it wasn't really explained too much, which was kinda weird. I mentioned earlier about companions, the karma system, exposition, and a lot of dialogue. So let's focus on that next. As you explore new places and new chapters, you'll meet new companions that have their own stories. I won't be talking about each and every companion in detail, but basically the companions in this game, like every Bioware game, have a lot of character and story to tell. My main issue is that most of the companions are one-dimensional. You have a bratty princess, a secretive guy with a dark past, the brute that just wants to drink and fight, a guy running away from his wife, a guy who lost his kid and now wants revenge, and a girl who you grew up with and is basically an outcast due to her skills, which wasn't really useful throughout the entire game. And a kid that is used as an anchor or possessed by two spirits, one good and the other evil. So that is basically my issue. Well, it's not really a bad thing, but it's just not what I expected from a Bioware game. Not to say that the companions were bad, it's just that most of them felt really bland. Another thing about this is that the only way to learn about them more is through dialogue. Throughout the game, they just simply tell you everything as you progress. This isn't a bad thing, again, but it can get kinda old when all you have is dialogue and exposition telling you their story. Most of the companions don't even have short missions you can do with them, just to flesh out the companions a little bit more. One word keeps on coming up while writing and recording, and that word is simple. A lot about this game is simple, and you'll see that as we move forward with the video. Being simple isn't really a bad thing. Sometimes simple is a good thing, and I think that's what we have here. A very simple game, but a really good game as well. The companions in combat are basically worthless. The best companion you can have is the little girl that turns into a guardian. All the other companions are basically weak and useless. Their main use is to distract other enemies. I wanted to add tanking damage as one of their uses, but they die really quickly. Next, let's talk about the karma system. And like what I said, it's very simple. During conversations, if you reply with generally good options, you get good karma, or in this case, the way of the open palm. If you reply in a bad way, you get bad karma points and get the way of the closed fist. This doesn't really affect the game too much, just the ending you get after finishing the game, and a few fighting styles and gems that you can use, as well as a few side quests that you can and can't do due to your karma. Like most Bioware games, a lot of the world and story is told from exposition and dialogue, and in books. This is the same here. One note about the dialogue is that the voice acting was done really well. Most of the characters had like 3 animations to show if they're happy, sad, or angry. What really made the companions interesting and worth listening through their stories was their excellent voice acting. Let's move over to the gameplay. The combat on its surface looks simple, but it's actually pretty deep. It's not as deep and complex like Monster Hunter World, Dark Souls, or Dragon Age, or even Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, but it's deep enough to keep you satisfied and interested throughout the whole game. Combat in this game is divided into different styles. You have martial styles, your basic punch and kicks, weapon styles where you use different weapons throughout the game, support styles that don't do any damage but cause debuffs to your enemies like shock, paralyze, disorient, and slow. You also have transformation styles. One example and probably the most OP skill in the entire game is the Jade Golem, which can basically two-shot any normal mobs and quickly finish any boss fights. And you also have magic style, which for the most part felt really useless. Now, what makes the combat fun is that it's hands-on. You have normal combos, you also have power attacks, area attacks, blocking and dodging, and more advanced stuff would be the harmonic combos, which when done right, one-shots normal enemies and drops orbs to fill your HP, chi, and focus. We'll talk more about them later on. Combat overall was fun, well, except for that one part where I couldn't heal because there were no fountains to heal from, and I kept on dying. And then I learned you can fight with your focus on, and that was basically GG to all the mobs in the entire game. What made the combat deep was combining different styles with each other, like using Storm Dragon style with Leaping Tiger was basically OP, and Heavenly Wave with 1000 cuts was really good to heal yourself when you need it. Also, there are specific enemies that can only be damaged by using weapon or magic. Combining and mixing different styles and not relying on one tactic too much made the combat really interesting. Next, let's talk about leveling up. Again, like in the recurring theme of this game, it's straightforward and simple. Once you level up, you get to choose how to accolade your skill points. You have 3 options. Body, which affects your hit points and also affects your intimidation and charm. We'll talk more about them later. Next is Spirit, which affects your chi and how much of it you have. Chi is used to heal yourself or for magic styles, and Chi attacks, which makes you hit harder. Spirit also affects your intuition and intimidation. Last, we have Mind, which affects your focus, and to me, the most OP, because focus basically slows down time when you need it. Mind also affects charm and intuition. When you level up, you also have style points. Depending on what level you are, you get more as you progress. Style points are used to level up different fighting styles. You can level up the damage of your martial style or your attack speed, the duration of buffs in your support style, and to lower the chi or focus cost of some abilities. Now, like in most Bioware games, you have speech checks which can help you during missions and dialogues. The 3 speech checks we have are intuition, intimidation, and charm. And like everything else about this game, it's fairly simple as well. If you pass the speech check, you get extra money or more information. Another tool you have in the game is the Dragon Amulet. This is a tool that you as a spirit monk will use to focus your power and help you unlock your potential. In-game, it's basically a tool you use to put gems which add stats to your character. It can range from more base HP, chi or focus, or more stats towards body, mind, and spirit. It can also give you base stats on your intimidation, charm, and intuition. They also have buffs and debuffs. Again, simple, right? Let's quickly talk about the character customization. It's pretty basic. I just went with Furious Ming, one of the presets, but you can customize your own character. This again is pretty straightforward. You get to choose what starting style and what starting stats you have during the beginning. The graphics of this game was pretty good for its time. Most characters had facial reactions, and the animations were pretty clean. The music sometimes becomes overwhelming during cutscenes. There was a point where the ambient music and the background soundtrack was so loud I could barely hear the dialogue, but overall, the composition was good. I didn't see a lot of bugs, but there was this constant bug where after a loading screen your camera would just be floating and you wouldn't see your character. And that was annoying at some points, but you can quickly dip back from one load area to another to fix it. Another bug was some NPCs would be T-posing, which was kind of funny. Another issue I had was I could not open the game through Steam, and the shortcut in my desktop. I had to go to the Steam library in my drive and look for the .exe file and open it from there. Before we move to the conclusion, let's talk about a few small notes. I was genuinely taken back to the old days when I saw the first cutscene. Compared to games today where the cutscenes are seamless, the cutscene in this game had their own animated sections, which was a huge callback to old days in gaming. Skipping dialogue can be annoying during some boss fights. There would be introductions and exposition dumps before the actual fight. If you lost the boss fight, you had to repeat the entire conversation, which got pretty annoying at some points. Some combat encounters felt cheap, mainly boss fights, especially when you have the Jade Golem, and you use your chi attacks and focus, and when you can exploit the focus system with a Leaping Tiger and Storm Dragon, which if done correctly will drop focus, meaning you can destroy groups of enemies with ease because you can essentially slow down time forever. Let's move over to the conclusion. This game overall is really simple at its core, but at the same time really good. You know how sometimes we just want to eat regular pepperoni pizza? This game felt like that, a comfort food. I initially wanted to play Dragon Age Inquisition, but after checking that the game is over 150 hours long, I wanted to play something shorter and saw this game on EA Play, which by the way is probably my smartest purchase this year. I just recently finished The Witcher 3 at 124 hours and I wanted something shorter. And this game was just right. The story, world, and lore of this game is like what I've been saying. It's really simple and straightforward. Overall, the story was very entertaining to follow. The combat loop as well was pretty fun, though it did have flaws when it came to exploits, but overall, it was really solid. In my point of view, this game isn't talked about as much because this game exclusively came out on the Xbox, and during that time, the original Xbox had a lot of really great games. That, unfortunately, overshadowed this game. Even when this game was ported to the PC, it didn't get the attention it deserved. Some people said that when this game came out on the PC, that the graphics of this game was outdated for its time. It was around 2007. And I do agree with that as well. But looking at it now, in 2021, the graphics and the art style is very nostalgic, and in my opinion looks really good. Another reason why people don't talk about this game is because of the popularity of the two major franchises of BioWare, Mass Effect and Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, and eventually Dragon Age. These three games are the most iconic and well-known games we have from BioWare. And unfortunately, Jade Empire was squeezed in the middle and flew under the radar. This game was really enjoyable, and if you're a fan of RPGs, you might enjoy this game. If you're a fan of BioWare and haven't played this game, try this out. This game really shows us what BioWare was experimenting with before coming out with Mass Effect and the Dragon Age series. You can find this game on Steam, really cheap, and to me, it's worth playing. So that's gonna be it for me today, you guys. Thank you so much if you got this far. Comment down below what game you guys want me to try next. I want to try a bad game next, because I haven't really played a lot of bad games this year. And well, I just want to try and review more bad games just to see my reaction to it as well. So again, if you guys reached this far, thank you so much. Comment down below, like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to reach 500 subs, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out and much love.